Welcome back to the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Uncertainty. That's the word that economists are using to describe the economy. It's also the theme of a small business event. This year, the 11th annual Small Business Workshop, hosted by the Lee Group, will explore uncertainty and strategies for resilience at the Corner Ballpark in Detroit tomorrow from 8 to noon. How are President Trump's tariffs impacting small businesses? And how are business leaders and consultants recommending small businesses navigate this moment? To discuss all that, we have Mark Lee here. He's the president and CEO of the Lee Group, a marketing consulting firm in Michigan. Mark, welcome to the Metro.
Great. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So first, who are the small businesses that you work with the most?
We work with small businesses under $30 million, quite frankly, here, and Detroit-based businesses as well. They've been in business for anywhere from 1 to 3 years, so they're still relatively new. We do work with businesses that are long-established businesses, but the ones looking for the most help are those that have been starting out and looking to grow their businesses as well.
So you're trying to get them off the ground during this very pivotal moment when someone first starts a business and there's a good likelihood that things could fold.
Yeah, what happens is businesses will fold. 80% of small businesses will fold within 12 months of launch. And they're looking for those strategies to get them to the next level. They're looking for ideas and programs to say, let's focus on business sustainability as well as growth. Now, mind you, though, those who have been in business for a long time, they are also grappling with growth, particularly in this time of uncertainty. So what we're finding there is that those businesses might be in business for a long time, but they're just looking to focus on long-term growth, and they're not exactly sure how to navigate all these uncertain times that we're currently in. And as a result of that, why I say we may focus on relatively new businesses, the bottom line is that a whole plethora of businesses are looking for support.
So in your experience, I mean, what you're saying is that typically it's a very pivotal time for small businesses when they first start out. But I'm wondering if that's really shifting now, if we're seeing that. I mean, you mentioned longtime businesses are struggling too. And I think for a lot of us, when we see a longtime business shut down, it really gets the wheels cranking in our minds. And we're wondering, it lasted for so long. It seemed like it was doing well. What happened? Are you seeing more instances like that?
Absolutely. You see it particularly down in the restaurant industry. Restaurants go through a lot of churn. 5 years ago, there was a space with one particular restaurant. Today, it's a completely different space. And what we're beginning to discover is we're seeing more and more businesses are beginning to churn out. Other businesses are churning in. And the reason for that, Robin, is that people are burning through their cash right now. A small business in Detroit typically has less than $10,000 at the bank. Let that sink in for a second. Less than $10,000 of capital in the bank. What that simply means is that that's enough to keep you in business for another 2 weeks. So after that, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
That's it. That's all.
By the time you pay all your expenses, by the time you pay your rent, you pay your employees, you pay for your cost of materials, after 2 weeks, you're gone. And as a result, what we're seeing is let's transition to this time of uncertainty. For example, businesses are saying, I don't want to take that chance right now. Let me sell my business and cash out and invest those resources in my personal growth, go back into the corporate space, or find something that's more relevant and necessary for me. So in these times of uncertain times, for example, the tariffs. Here's a great example. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business, all of a sudden these tariffs, and we know that the president's going back and forth on the tariffs and things like that with China, for example, but the bottom line, as a business owner, I'm concerned about my costs today.
Right.
And as a result, the tariffs may increase my costs. The challenge is, do I absorb the cost? Do I pass it on to the customer? A larger organization can absorb that cost, or they can spread it over many more facilities and supplies that they have. An entrepreneur does not have that same resource base. So that's why you're beginning to see more and more businesses churn out, either walk away altogether or trying to figure out what do they do next.
Before we get into the pain of the unknown, in other words, the uncertainty that's hanging over many folks' heads right now who are business owners, could you first tell us what kinds of small businesses are you anticipating will be in attendance at this small business workshop?
Predominantly Detroit-based businesses. 100% of them are Metro Detroit-based businesses. About 80% are from within the city limits of Detroit. We have a nice, diverse clientele, people coming. Typically, 2/3 are female-owned businesses, 1/3 are male-owned businesses. And that's a reflection of the trend. What we're seeing is that the majority of businesses that are starting right now are female-based entrepreneurs. These are people who decided to get back into the workforce, but they don't want to go back into that corporate space because of the uncertainty there with corporate layoffs. And they want the flexibility because they may have families, they may have kids. And so our workshop is a direct reflection of that. We're also finding a lot more technology-based organizations are coming to the workshop. Why? It's a direct reflection of what's happening in society right now.
Sure.
We see technology is now being enabled. That's probably the hottest growth area, not just in Detroit, but across the country. Obviously, we're being Detroit. We're a manufacturing city, although we're diversifying our economic base. We're going to find a lot of auto suppliers, right? Small businesses will be in attendance. So the bottom line is it's a diverse group of people. We're expecting, we've got over 250 registrations, which is incredible. We have just blown through the records. This is 3 years in a row. We have broken the previous year's record. But we're expecting a plethora of male, female, black, white, a diverse group of business owners from across Metro Detroit.
Okay, Mark, let's say I'm starting my new business. I'm gonna, you know what, I've got a decent collection of records. I'm gonna dust off those records and I wanna start a business selling those records. What are you gonna do to support me?
What you're going to do to support yourself. All right. So that I do a lot of public speaking in Detroit and across the country. And what happens is that people will hear me speak. And then what they will do is they will come to me literally as I walk off the stage. I'm surrounded by people, right? And the first thing they will say to me is this: Mark, I have this idea. What can you do to help me? And what I do is I turn around and ask the exact same question I just asked you. What are you going to do for yourself? See, what's happened is that we have become so dependent upon people helping us. And the first step you should do, if you have a record business, for example, you want to sell records in the city of Detroit, across the state of Michigan, my first question, Rob, is going to be, what is your plan? What exactly are you trying to achieve? Is there a market for the records that you're trying to sell? So I want to turn around and I want to challenge you. Now, at that point, you can come back to me and say, Mark, here's my plan. I've written it down. These are my business objectives. But you can also come back to me. Now, at that point, you can say, what support can you provide me? And what I'm going to do is to come back and push back and challenge your thought process. I want to challenge you and say exactly, what is your business strategy? What is your brand? How do you want to position yourself? See, a lot of small businesses, a lot of business owners, again, I've been doing this for 17 years. 17 years. And the one common element that I get from people constantly is I have a great idea, but they're not exactly sure where to take that idea. And that's the first step in creating a successful business, is understanding what your idea is, write it down, talk to people, make sure there is, in fact, a market for it. So it is a collaborative effort with me. If you choose to work with me, I want to challenge you, but we're going to work together. And my objective is to help minimize the fact that you may not be successful long term. Our objective is to help you to become successful long term.
Okay, so let's say we already established that I'm going to answer a need with my very obscure records that there is this great demand for. We're talking, some old Detroit techno records that are hard to find, some white labels. At any rate, now what are you telling me when it comes to, let's speed up to this moment, when it comes to navigating the uncertainty right now? What are you telling business owners?
I'm telling business owners, pay attention to what's happening in the marketplace right now. All right, take the blinders off. Make sure you understand the economic uncertainty that's out there. I'm also going to encourage you to make sure you have the financial resources. The number one issue with small business owners is access to capital. Access to capital. Go back to what I said earlier. Less than $10,000 in the bank, and that's not going to last you too far. So do you understand what your financial options are? You have your record business. Do you truly understand just because 5 people said, hey, I want those records does not necessarily mean you have a demand for that product. Those might be 5 of your closest friends saying, I love what you're doing. So I want to.
Ouch. All right.
All
Mark.
right. You get the idea. So my point is there is a process that you should go through, which enables you to identify whether or not there is a specific need. Make sure that you're engaging with customers, potential customers, to see whether or not they think that product is going to fill a specific need or a specific void. That's always the first step.
Let's go back to the tariffs if we could. Yesterday, producer Sam Corey spoke with the owner of Faust House, a coffee roaster in Detroit. He said that the countries that grow coffee beans, like Vietnam and Brazil, have tariffs on them. And because of that, he'll likely have to raise prices when he gets his next shipment next month. So we've got here a very specific example of a local business that's going to be affected by these tariffs. What would you recommend he do?
Couple of thoughts is identify a supply base or a potential supplier from another country that's not necessarily going to be affected by the tariff. And so a lot of businesses are grappling with that. So we are hearing a lot about, take that example, are there other coffee bean suppliers out there not subject to the tariff, right? Number 2 is consider partnering with another supplier who is in fact sourcing their coffee beans from another country. So in other words, don't do it yourself. Find partners, find relationships, leverage those relationships that will focus on those countries not subject to the tariff tax, right? And so the idea there is that you're going to keep your costs down. And as a result of that, you don't need to worry about passing those costs on to your customers, or you don't need to worry about absorbing the costs. Now, in his current situation, he's getting to the critical point of either do I raise my prices for the customers or do I eat the cost? That is a fair question. And so what I tell people in that situation, one, is make sure you reassure your customers. If you're going to stay in business, make sure you reassure your customers that you're doing everything humanly possible to keep the costs down, right? But at the end of the day, Robin, you have to make a business decision. And the business decision is can you afford to eat that cost? Or if you pass it on to the customers, are you going to potentially lose customers? That is a tough question for an entrepreneur to answer. Big businesses can answer that question because they have the resources, they have the scale, the economies, where they can certainly negotiate and leverage those relationships. An entrepreneur cannot. So my first recommendation would be make sure you assess everything you're doing and whether or not can you afford to eat the cost or pass it on to your customers.
Mark, do you anticipate small businesses going under due to the tariffs?
Absolutely. I heard a story recently where, according to the independent financial advisors for small businesses, this is the highest uncertainty for 4 straight months. The uncertainty is increasing for small businesses, and this is the highest rate since 1986. Since 1986. Let that sink in. That's when this report started to share out data. And so I would expect that 2 things are going to happen over the next several months. Some businesses are going to retrench, and they're going to pivot, and they're going to adjust and say, hey, we still got a chance. Think back to the pandemic. A lot of the businesses did pivot during the pandemic. Some of those businesses baited, and some did not. I'm also going to anticipate that over the next several months in 2025, quite candidly, some of these businesses are not going to make it. They're not going to make it because they don't have the appropriate plans. They're not going to make it because they're force-feeding an idea that they think that the customers want, when the reality of the situation is the customers really don't want that. They're not going to make it because the cost structure is out of whack. They need to go back and reassess their financials and make sure where can we gut out those costs. They're not going to make it because they think they have the answers themselves. This is a critical part of the conversation. What you want to do is to make sure that you have a board of advisors that you can pick up the phone and call and say, look, is this a good idea?
Yeah.
Can you support me? People in the city know me. They know who I am. They know what I do, and I respect that. But I'm not the expert on everything. I pick up the phone, I call friends, I call my professional associates and say, hey, what do you think about this and what do you think about that? So some of the businesses will make it, and some, quite candidly, are going to struggle, and in some cases, some are not going to make it.
I'm Robin Vincent. This is the Metro. We're talking about the uncertainty small businesses are facing due to tariffs. We're also talking about a small business event that's happening tomorrow. Our guest is Mark Lee. He's the president and CEO of the Lee Group. That's a marketing consulting firm in Michigan. His group is hosting an annual small business workshop in Detroit tomorrow morning at the Corner Ballpark. I want to continue the discussion about tariffs for a moment because of the huge potential impacts that they are going to have on small businesses, as you have just outlined. I mean, most economists are against tariffs because they say they make the economy less efficient. But I'm wondering, in terms of the strength of small businesses here in Metro Detroit, is there anything good about them?
The good thing about tariffs, if they're executed accurately and designed to do what they're supposed to do, you could do it. The bottom line is you're supposed to be able to bring production back into the states. In this case, if the tariffs are properly executed, if there's an appropriate plan, you're supposed to be able to bring those resources back to our auto plants, for example, right? And be able to develop and produce cars in those plants. If you're a small business owner, the idea is as opposed to outsourcing or bringing or importing products from other countries, you're going to begin to support your business with the local products from Eastern Market, for example, right? Or from other Detroit-based businesses, as an example. So those are the benefits of a tariff if they're executed and planned and implemented correctly. The issue is that there's a lot of noise out there, and as a result of the noise, there's a lot of confusion. But at the end of the day, if properly planned and executed, the idea would be you're investing more resources locally. If you're investing more resources locally, then I can hire more people locally. So it's supposed to have a positive impact on the local economy.
Okay, but that confusion and the uncertainty we've been discussing, those feelings in and of themselves are affecting the way people buy. It's affecting folks' purchase behaviors. And so in turn, I'm guessing this is already affecting small businesses that might not even be directly affected by tariffs.
That's correct. I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, I think people are confused. And consumer behavioral patterns. I'm also a professor at local universities. I teach a consumer behavior class. And what we're seeing is that people, quite candidly, they're not sure how to respond. Think about yourself. We get caught up in a routine. I go to the same stores. I become brand loyal. I assume that my product's going to be on the shelf. All of a sudden, the tariffs hit us. The prices go up. I go into the store. All of a sudden, my price on my product has skyrocketed. What do? Whoa. I start shopping around. I start sampling, right? So from a consumer perspective, we become confused. We're not exactly sure what we're supposed to do because, again, I'm caught up in my rut. I'm caught up in my routine. Now take that to the manufacturer. The manufacturer, the one who's producing the product, for example, is saying, oh, all of a sudden my sales are going down. Why are my sales going down? Well, because the perception of the consumers that they're paying more for my product. What do? In that situation, you want to reassure your customers that, again, what I said earlier, you're doing the best job that you possibly can do to maintain the cost structure and not to pass that cost on to you. But you also have to be realistic with your customer and say, I can't predict the future. We're doing everything that we could possibly do. But again, we're here to support you. We're going to continue to provide you with the products and services that you're looking for.
Mark, we're seeing more folks deciding to vote with their pocketbooks, especially as people get angered by Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire who's making a lot of impactful changes to the way people are living here in the U.S. And part of that, then, we're hearing folks say that it's really important to support small businesses versus Amazon and some of these other massive operations. Can you just distill for us why it is so important to support small businesses?
Small businesses are economic generators, economic powerhouse. I will give you a couple of statistics. The city of Detroit has over 62,000 small businesses. I'm not talking about the metropolitan area. The city from downtown to 8 Mile, Gratiot out to Telegraph, 62,000 businesses. So in the context, that's according to U.S. Census data, which means we're the fourth largest city in the country in terms of volume when it comes to the number of small businesses. Now, let's assume each one employs anywhere from 1 to 3 people. So you're talking about a job base, an economic base, right, of 60,000 to 180, nearly 200,000 jobs that are being generated by small businesses. That's just in Detroit. Let's take that number and look nationally. According to the SBA, 60 to 70% of the net new jobs created in this country are because of small businesses. See, a lot of times we love our big corporations. We love our big businesses here in Detroit, right? We love them. But the reality is, based on statistical data, the majority of the jobs created in this country are direct result of small businesses. That's why it's important to protect them.
Mark Lee is the president and CEO of the Lee Group. That's a marketing consulting firm in Michigan. The Lee Group is hosting its annual small business workshop tomorrow at the Corner Ballpark in Detroit from 8 a.m. to noon. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and joining us on the Metro.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coming up, President Trump has lowered the percentage of tariffs that he had previously slapped on China. We'll hear about what a conservative free market economist in Michigan makes of the change. Stay with us. This is the Metro.